actually are going to get very good conclusions today. Okay, you are going to do some calculations, some simple calculation based on the derivations that we have done yesterday, and some which we'll be doing today. So in the last class, okay, I've just mentioned specifically last class because if you're noting it down, you don't need to note this down. I'm just reviewing it very fast. So we said that basically deuteron is a 2-nucleon bound system and it is weakly bound. By the end of today's class, we are going to understand mathematically why we call it as weakly bound. Okay, and then we know that the binding energy is 2.25 MeV and the range is 2.1 Fermi. So yesterday we have seen that, and then we also said that there is no excited states of deuteron. Today we are also going to see that why there are no excited states. So that is also going to be one of the important major conclusion. Okay, and then we actually started with the derivation of the potential. So our aim was actually to consider a square well potential, and the main aim was to find out this depth. Okay, the main aim is actually was to find out this depth. So this is something which we are doing now. We have not yet reached the end here, so we are doing it. So this is basically a one-dimensional potential well. So it's a square well. We do it for ease, okay, for simplification, and we say that if it is less than R naught, that means it is within this range of 2.1 Fermi. The nuclei is bound, okay, or we can say the protons and the neutrons are within the nucleus. So the potential is minus V naught. But as soon as it escapes this or it goes out of R naught, the potential becomes 0. As I said yesterday, that if you're out of the room, you're free to move around. Okay, so that means the potential will become 0. Since it's a bound state, we are using negative sign for energy as a sign convention. That also is something which is important. So whatever calculation we are going to do is going to be in MeV. So we know that the bending energy and range is known, then we can actually find out the depth of the potential. Then we saw that what will be the form of this potential, just doing it fast because we have done it yesterday, that this potential will be actually a function of R. It's basically a central potential, and central potential is a function of R. But then again, we have to note that it doesn't depend on theta or phi. So if you just consider something like spherical polar coordinates, we are saying that it is independent of theta or phi. We are actually trying to simplify things here. Then we use quantum mechanics. So we know that Schrodinger equation H psi R is equal to E psi R, and then we are just going to use the Hamiltonian operator, and we are going to write down this equation. And then we said that in general, if we don't consider that phi and psi are not there, in general we write down that this wave function, which practically will be a central potential, but will also depend on theta and phi. So we should actually include spherical harmonics also. So this actually decides the energy, the phi r term, and the second term will actually give you the spherical harmonics. But for our case, L is equal to 0, okay, and M is equal to 0. We have to remember this. So this phi r is nothing but U r divided by r, because I told yesterday that from your class 12 knowledge, you know that potential is inversely dependent on the distance from the center of the nuclei, right? So we can just say that this is inversely dependent on r, and then you can just replace the value, put the value for the spherical harmonics, and then what we can do is we can put the value of L as 0, ML as 0, and if we use mathematical physics, this part will basically become 0. So we don't have this term, okay, so we'll just have these terms here. So based on this, we actually reached here. So this is something which we have stopped, where we have stopped. Now what is our aim? Our aim is to find out this value. Our aim is to find out this value, what is the potential, okay. So we are going to go about it. Now you see that this is a second order differential equation, and it is basically a function of u, okay. So basically you need to have a form of u. You need to have a form of u. So if you know what is this u, okay, which is of course an energy dependent factor, you will actually have to consider equations. There are different ways of solving it, but we will see what we do. Basically this is something which is already done in your quantum mechanics. So we'll continue today. So what are our conditions? So in quantum mechanics, you know, if you're basically studying this wave functions, this psi, you can actually use Schrodinger equation. The second order derivative and first order derivative will basically be defined, well defined, if the wave function is more or less continuous everywhere. That is the condition that we know. And then it is finite everywhere. It doesn't have an infinite value. And then it is square integrable. So this is also one more important condition which we usually miss. We usually remember these three: finite everywhere, continuous everywhere, and then du dr should be continuous. So if the wave function is continuous, the first derivative of this should also be continuous, right? But then square integrable is also important. In this case, it is not psi. We are having the function as u, okay? Because see, it's psi, and psi is nothing but dependent on phi. Let's forget about y, l, m, and all. And then phi is nothing but a function of u. So that means this u is representing nothing but the wave function only. So this is nothing but the wave function. So integration of 0 to infinity u square dr is again finite. Basically have a function of the wave function. You know, it's a wave function. So basically it will have a sine component, because if you consider something as a wave function, this has to be periodic in nature. So it might be a sine function, a cos function, or an exponential function. All of them has got an involvement of the trigonometric ratios. And whenever you have anything which is periodic, okay, you basically use sine function to us. So what we will do is, basically we are going to do the calculation for two cases. One is r less than r naught, and the second is r greater than r naught. Okay, so we are going to use these values. So I think this is very much quantum mechanics, which you already know. Okay, and then let's do the calculation for r less than r naught. So when r is less than r naught, that means the system is bound still. Okay, you have it within the nuclei, the neutron and the proton, or you are considering within the nuclei, the system, not outside the nuclei. What we can do, we can consider this equation, and then what we do is this. So basically v, we can replace it with minus v naught. So I have replaced it with minus v naught. Please remember, V naught is nothing but the depth of the potential. So I think this is simple maths here. We just take it here, take this on this side. So if it's cross multiplied, we have 2m here divided by h cross square. Okay, we can take the minus sign, okay, and then we can take it on this side. So if we take the minus sign out, it will be nothing but e plus v naught. Okay, please remember there is a minus sign here also. Okay, so you can just do the calculations here and you get this relation. Don't get confused. When you write it down, you can use 2 or 3 lines extra, and you will see that you are going to get the same answer. Okay. Is what we can do is, just as we do, I think you have done it number of times, this particular term is replaced by a constant which is k square. Okay, and this k is nothing but root over 2m v naught plus e divided by h cross square. Okay, this is just for ease of calculation. If you write it down as k, okay, if you write it down as k, then this becomes the this won't be k square, right? So this, if k is this, so k square would be nothing but this entire term. So I can just avoid that root term, so I'm just writing it down as k square. So we can actually solve this equation. This is a second order differential equation, and if you just do your integration properly, and that is why it should be square integrable, as I said, if you do the integration, you get this solution. So a sine kr plus b cos kr. So what I like is, everyone, all of you should actually try this solution on your own. That yes, we all the time do say that this is directly a sine kr plus b sine kr. Something very obvious, right? Because we tend to remember this, but you do the calculation, you are going to get more or less the same result. Just try it out. Okay. So we have this relation u1. Now what is u1? u1 is nothing but r less than r naught. Okay. So we have got this wave function in terms of sine and cos. But you know that in this wave function you have to solve for a and b. That means that I have to find out all the unknowns here. I have to find out all the unknowns here. Very important. So what happens is, let's erase this part. Yeah. So what happens is, basically you need to find out what is the unknown here. So a and b. So if you can find out the unknown, you can actually say what is the wave function. Okay. So the unknowns here are a and b for now, because r we know it has a range. So if you consider in general, we can put it as r naught. Okay, and we know it is 2.1 for me. And then k value we are actually trying to calculate. So we'll do that, okay, later. So what happens at r is equal to 0? So whenever we say r is equal to 0, we are considering the boundary. So if we draw the wave function here, this part is nothing but r is equal to 0. So you obviously you cannot have a wave on the wall, right? You cannot have it on the wall. if you are there, you are either on this side of the wall or on the other side of the wall. You cannot be on the wall. So basically there is no such wave function which exists on the wall. So at r is equal to 0, this u1r must be 0. So this part must be 0. So this must be 0. So if this is 0, that means we need to have these part. Okay, so let's put r is equal to 0. So if we put r is equal to 0 here, sine 0 is 0. So this entire thing will become 0. Right? And then if we put r is equal to 0 in this place, this entire thing becomes 1. So the value that remains is only b. So b is equal to 0. So this b remains here. Everything else is here. There, this will become 0. So I think this is very simple. So since we know b, we can just simply write down the wave function in terms of u1r is equal to a sine kr. And use the normalization condition for finding out a, but we are not going to do it now. Okay. So we have got this a sine kr. So we have got one wave function u1r is equal to a sine kr. So this is known to us. Let's do it for r greater than r0. Then here what we are going to do is we are going to replace this with 0. So this part will become vanished. So it will become more easy. Okay. So what happens is this is simply minus h cut square by 2m d square u by dr square is equal to u, because this part is 0, right? So this part is 0. So you have this. Then what you can do is you can just again do the replacement here, and then you can get this function, and this is nothing but gamma square r. Now if you try to solve this, okay, doesn't have a minus sign in front of it, you're basically going to get an exponential function. But before that, what is gamma? Root over of 2me by h cut square. Now the question is, do you need to remember what is k and what is gamma? The answer is yes, you need to remember, because even for your entrance exam, net and all, they might ask you to calculate gamma. What is the value of gamma for a given energy or for a given potential? Okay, or what is the value of k for a given energy and given potential? You will understand the physical significance now. Okay, in the next few slides. So this is basically not imaginary. Why? Because this is of course negative, but the E value, we know it's a bound system. We are considering it to be minus of 2.225 ABV. So what happens is if you put the value minus, this entire thing will become plus. So this is nothing but real. So this is real. Okay. So this is not imaginary. So gamma does exist. Okay. So we have the bound system. We are using a minus. So I've just covered all the points because somehow I feel that when we're doing it online, might not get a chance to ask question because of network issues and all. So I'm trying to cover everything so that you are not confused anyway. So if you just put a solution for this, you'll see that it will become an exponential function, and this is the solution here. Okay. Again, we have got C and D. We are actually considering this potential value. So if you just consider this second region, and this is my first region, so this is u1 here. So the wave function u1 is here, and the wave function u2 is here. So for u2 we saw that the solution is basically nothing but ce to the power gamma r plus de to the power minus gamma r. So the condition here is more or less correct. That is not a problem. What happens is if I put r is tends to infinity, so that means this value of r is something going to be very large, and this value is going to be something very large, infinity. So if r tends to infinity, that means if it is at a very large distance, this u will more or less vanish, and that's quite logical, because if you go very far from the system, okay, then the wave function is not there. Okay, it's not there because if you consider the escaping of the nuclei, it has already escaped and gone at a very large distance. So we are saying that the u value will become 0. So u becomes 0 here and r tends to infinity. Now when r tends to infinity, this part will become 0. I think this is clear, because you put r is equal to infinity and then you put 1 divided by e to the power gamma. I think this one we actually is simple here. E to the power gamma r, this one something which we did yesterday, but then this r is infinity, so this will be 1 divided by infinity, and 1 divided by infinity is more or less 0, we know that. So that means this entire term becomes 0. Here I cannot put r is equal to infinity, because if I put r is equal to infinity, the entire term becomes infinity. Okay, so the only possibility that u will become 0 if this value of c is 0. because here I can put r is infinity and then I can see this tends to 0. But here if I put r is infinity, that means this loses the physical significance, that everything becomes infinity. Then how I am going to explain this, right? So what we're going to do is, we know that this part cannot be there, it will be there, it will have some definite value, but 0. If this is 0, then this 0, this side, left hand side and right hand side are same, and hence the value is c is equal to 0. So using this, we are just finding out c. That means we are eliminating one of the constant. So if c is 0, the equation will now tend to u2 is d to the power minus gamma r. Okay, so there is a minus. Okay, it's not a plus. So there is a minus de to the power minus gamma r, and then we have derived these two relations. Okay, let's just have a quick run through. A sine k e to the power minus gamma r in the two regions u1 and u2, and then once we know this, we can actually think about the boundary. So what we say is that at the boundary, definitely these two wave functions will more or less be equal. Okay, there is the transition phase and it's going to be equal, and then at the boundary, a sine k r naught is equal to d e to the power minus gamma r naught, and we know at the boundary the first differential will also be equal and of course continuous. Okay, because you see the wave function is continuous at the boundary, it is continuous everywhere, it is one of the conditions. Okay, so that means at the boundary we can consider this is equal to this, and then we have the first order differential, and then we can differentiate this side and that side, and we can basically find out this equation. So our final equation that stands is k cot k r naught is equal to minus gamma. Now for your examination purpose, you need to remember this, I think, so that what happens is when you are deriving and you finally arrive at one derivation point, at this point let's say, you know that this is correct. Okay, because some of the things in these long derivation, this is one of the trick that you should actually remember some of the results so that you don't arrive at the wrong result. Okay, and then we can put the value of k, and then we have this equation, and then this is cot of r naught, and then we can replace it with k, and then this is the value. And then what happens, as I said, that we basically do the replacement of the unknown known quantities here. So we know that r naught and e are something which is known from experiment. R naught is 2.1 for me, e is equal to minus 2.225 for me, and if this is a minus, I can put a minus here, this becomes plus, so that means this is a real quantity. If this is a real quantity, that means whatever value of potential I'm going to derive is going to have some definite value, and we are going to use some mathematical tools, and of course with the help of uh, mm, uh, technology, right, computers and all, we can actually do the calculation in a much simpler way. So we have the reduced mass mpmn divided by mp plus mn, and then if we solve this, we can actually calculate what is v naught. Okay, so this v naught is found out to be 36 MeV. So what I'd like to tell you is this, please remember this value of 36 MeV, because that is important, and then this is actually nothing but the strength of the potential. Important conclusion. So let's look into this diagram once again. We are already acquainted with this. Okay, pardon the bad quality, that's not very clear, but I think it's okay. This is minus 2.225 MeV, which was nothing but the energy, and this is the depth of the potential. Now you might say that, okay sir, why didn't you put a minus sign there? Because this potential, this 36 MeV is the magnitude. That means that much is the value of the potential. So that much deep is the potential. Okay, so if you consider this range, okay, let's say it starts from 0, okay, consider this range here, this is just a value. So if you consider it 0, here it is 36, here it is 36, okay, so 36. So from here to here it is 36. So if you consider this minus 2.225, this is just a magnitude. This will be very close to the boundary. See, this is very close to the boundary. Try to understand it physically, okay? This is only the magnitude, okay? And then minus 225 will be very close because this is 36. So if you consider the depth, I think I should write it down the other way, okay? I think I'll just erase it so that it becomes clear. I think it's confusing here. So this is the depth of the potential. So I think in general we can say that if we come at the boundary, the depth is 0. There is no depth. But when you go to the deepest end, okay, this is nothing but 36. I think this will be more clear to you. So this is the depth. So if you go to minus 2.225, that means you are going very close to the boundary. You are going very close to zero. If you just consider the scale here. So that means if it is very close to the boundary, slightest of energy will actually take it out of the potential. And that's why it cannot have a bound state. Okay, just understand how to actually write this down. So this energy that we are considering, this particular energy, is very close to the surface. So it's very close to the surface, very close to the surface in the sense, very close to the surface in terms of escaping the nuclei. Okay, hence for an excited state, the nucleon will escape the potential. So if we actually excite it, it's so close that it will excite and actually escape the potential, go out of the system, and that is why it is a weakly bound system. This is the conclusion from V naught is equal to 36 MeV. You have to understand this conclusion. What happens usually is whenever you following these books and all, a lot of times you find that actually they are doing the calculation and at the end they are giving this conclusion, okay, 3-4 lines. But what happens is we as a student, sometime it does happen, we are so exhausted by learning so much of derivation that we tend to ignore this conclusion. But if you don't read the conclusion, if you don't try to understand that what is the final results importance, we are not going to develop the interest in the subject. Very important. Okay, so this is one of the mistakes that many of us do. Even I used to do it during my BSc MSc days. Okay, but I understand that you need to love physics, you need to understand the conclusion. Very important, because अगर 36 MeV derived किया, you're just doing maths. Okay, you're doing quantum mechanics, using quantum mechanics, just deriving it, you're just doing simple maths. We are going a step ahead. हम maths नहीं कर रहे हैं यहाँ पे. We are actually trying to understand the physics behind. So this is what is there. What is the important conclusion here? Now we are going to see what happens to K. If we find out the value of K, and then of course we can find out what is the value of sine K R naught. R naught is nothing but 2.1. Okay, and then K we can calculate from that formula. So K we can calculate from the formula. So this is your task for today. I told you pen and paper. You find out the value of K. Okay, for your ease, I'm just going to go back and display the value of K on screen. I think we have it already. Okay, यहाँ पे भी है, but okay, let me just take it directly to K. So find out the value of K. So ये K निकालना है. So I think we already know the value. You tell me what is the value of K. You know what is M. Okay, M is nothing but mass of the proton, mass of the neutron divided by mass of the proton plus mass of the neutron. Okay, V is the potential, it is in electron volts. Okay, and then this E is nothing but the energy. Okay, so you know the energy is minus 2.225. V naught is 36. This is 36. This is minus 2.225. Don't miss out the sign, otherwise all your calculations will be wrong. 2.225 MeV. H cut square 6.64 10 to the power minus 34 joule second. Okay, and then 2 pi you can put, and then M you can take. Okay, M also you can consider it in terms of MeV per c square. Okay, and then do the calculations, or you can find out the value of M in U and then convert it into joule and all those things. Okay, so you have to do your conversions very efficiently. I'm not going to help you with this because I think this is important. What I have is the final answer. Okay, मेरे लिए easy है, book में final answer होता है, so I just write it down. Okay, but then for you to get satisfied, it's important that you do the calculation. Try doing the calculation now. Okay, I'm not expecting that you might get the exact answer, but just try to plug in the values and keep it in your mind that you have to do it, this calculation. Okay, it's very important that you hustle yourself to do calculations. So I'll give you, let's say 5 to 7 minutes. Just put the values and see where do you reach. Okay, try to convert the values, very important, and tell me what is the value of K, then I will show you. As Nilesh asked me yesterday why my videos are short, this is one of the reason, because we'll be doing the calculations, so उसके बाद एकदम lull period हो जाएगा ना, मेरा वीडियो कौन ऐसे ही just स्क्रीन देखता रहेगा, so I'll just delete that part, that's all. Okay, so you can continue with your calculations, okay, because I think this calculation might take some time, okay. So today I am not going to ask you on this, but then let's see what happens to the value of k, okay. So the thing is, you should actually get that value, very important. So k we calculate from here, and then the answer that you should get is nothing but 0.90 performing. So this actually might help you to understand it better, okay, and use some logic to make things simple. The first thing, mass. So mass will be actually a complicated thing to calculate. So what happens is, if you take mass, you can do this. For the reduced mass, you can consider Mn and Mp are equal, okay, because you know that mass and neutron and proton are almost same. So we can just consider this to simplify things, because I'm sure some of you are already doing it with Mn Mp divided by Mn plus Mp. But we can do this. So we can take Mn is equal to Mp, and if you do that, we can say Mn Mp on top, which will be Mn Mp square divided by 2 times of Mp. So Mp 1 can cancel, we'll get Mp by 2. So in mass, you can just simply write it down as Mp divided by 2. And then you have to find out what is h cut square divided by 2m. So I can just bring it at the denominator. So I'm going to calculate this. So you can just simply write down Mp as Mp by 2. So that 2 gets cancelled. We're just going to calculate h cut square divided by Mp. Okay. And then if you put your values properly, okay, in joule second, okay, and Mp also, you convert it into units of joule, okay. I think we have already done it. 1 U is equal to the kg unit, okay. You just replace it with kg, and then you can do your calculations. And then if you convert it to MeV, you will definitely get the answer to be 41.3 MeV femtometer square. So I'm just keeping it as Fermi square for the simple reason that final, okay. So you can keep it in that term, okay. And this particular term will be in MeV, because V naught is MeV, E is MeV, and this h cut square divided by 2m, okay, if you bring it at the bottom, if you bring it here, okay, this will also be in MeV femtometer square, okay. So you have it here in MeV Fm square, all are under root, okay. So Fm square. So this will be easy for you to do the calculation. Please do it and confirm. Everything is under root, and this is just MEV. So this is just MEV. So this gets cancelled here. We have got Fm square. So if you come out of the bracket, it will be only Fm. So it is 1 by Fm, it will be Fm inverse. So this is the value that we get for K. So till now, whenever you are studying quantum mechanics, you must have only stopped here, okay? Many a times you don't really do a calculation because that is not needed at that point of time. But now you need it, okay? Now we are going to use this calculated value of K to find out some important results in deuteron problem. So what we do here is that we are finding out the value of K, and then this is quite interesting to see that K has a unit of inverse of distance. Inverse of distance, okay? Why inverse of distance? Because if you remember from wave theory, K is equal to 2 pi by lambda, and lambda 1 by lambda is nothing but wave number. So K is actually related to wave number. So this is the same old term, only we are actually taking it in terms of more in terms of quantum mechanics. H cut square doesn't mean that the physical interpretation changes, okay? So this I think is something which is important and new for all of us. And then it's the edge of the well. So let's find out what is the wave function sine k r naught at the edge of the well. It has to be maximum so that it is going to escape, okay? It's going to be that, okay? Let's see what happens. Sine k r naught, so we can just take this k we have just calculated, r naught is 2.1, and then we can find out sine of 1.9. This is in radian, not in degree. So in your calculator, you might actually find out that radian button. You can do the calculation there. This is in radian. So if you do the calculation in radian, the value is 0.95. And then this sine kr will have a maximum value of 1. Okay, it will have a maximum value of 1. You already know. And then for maximum value, what should be kr? Kr should be 1.57. Okay, for maximum value of sine kr to be 1, this particular value in radians, okay, not in degree, in radians should be 1.57. Very important, okay? So if this is 1.57, we put it, the value has to be maximum, becomes 1 maximum. So if you know kr is equal to 1.57, can we find out the value of r? We can. So you can just replace the value, and then we see r is equal to 1.744 for me. Okay, r will be for me because you know k by okay, k, right? So we have got r is equal to 1.57 divided by k. So 1.57 is in radian, no units, and divided by k means it is per Fermi. So that Fermi goes on top, so this will become Fermi. So we see that dimensionally also we are not doing any kind of mistake. So what does it mean? It means that at r is equal to 1.77 Fermi, this wave function u, which is a function of sine k r naught, is maximum. So this at this value of 1.744, the value of sine is nothing but maximum. This was our first region, okay? If you remember, this was our first region, which is nothing but represented as u1. All the notation we used u1. So this is nothing but the sine wave. So the sine wave curve will basically maximize at this particular point. Okay, what happens after that? After that it is u2. So in this particular region it is u2, which is actually nothing but an exponential function. So there is an exponential decay. The question is, how fast is the decay? Okay, no, question is how fast is the decay, and this is also important. Okay, so if you want to find out what is how fast is the decay, we can actually again find out the value of gamma. So u1 is equal to a sine kr. Now can we calculate gamma? Okay, we can. So let's just do the calculation. This is relatively simpler compared to the other one. Okay, so we know what is the value of gamma. Gamma is nothing but root over of 2me by h cross square minus is there. Replace the value, h cross square divided by 2m from the previous calculation, which you should do. Bring it to m here. We are going to get it to be nothing but 41.3 MeV, right? So this is 41.3 MeV, and then this E is nothing but minus 2.225, minus minus becomes plus. You know that gamma is real now. That means we can do the calculation, which is per Fermi. But then we are just going to take it to be 1 by gamma. Okay, 1 by gamma is equal to 4.31 Fermi. So this is actually the unit. Okay, we are taking the inverse unit here. Okay, and I think we can stop here. Okay.